one very useful story to help us think about the identifiable victim effect is the story of baby Jessica. Baby Jessica was a little girl in Texas that fell into a hole. This was some kind of digging device, and she fell into it, and she was there for quite a long time, for I think about 50 hours or so. But she was stuck, and it was really sad, and our hearts went to her. And you know what? She had more CNN and coverage in Rwanda and Darfur put together. And the question is why? And of course it's because the fact she was young, cute, innocent girl who fell into the well, and we could all look at the TV coverage. We could all sympathize with her, and we could all feel her pain and the pain of her parents, and they were some as this drama evolved. Eventually somebody rescued her, and that picture is an incredibly iconic picture in the history of rescue, and everybody was very happy. By the way, after the fact, people started donating money to baby Jessica. She was already safe, but after the fact, they donated money for her, and she became a very wealthy young lady when she came of age and could get this money. Why do we care so much about her and not about other things? And this, of course, is the problem of genocide. And you can look at the history of the world, and you can look at all kinds of terrible things that have happened. And every time we wake up after the tragedy and we say, never again, and every time it happens again and again and again. And if you just look at the list of all the genocide that happened in the world, this is just incredibly sad. And this, of course, is not new observation. You can see all kinds of thoughtful people in our past who've commented on this idea.
I'm deeply moved if I see one man suffering and would risk my life for him. Then I talk impersonally about the possible pulverization of our big cities with 100 million dead. I'm unable to multiply one man's suffering by 100 million.
The numbers are important, and yet they are not everything. For whatever reasons, images often strike us more powerfully, more deeply than numbers. We seem unable to hold the emotions aroused by numbers for nearly as long as those of images. We quickly grow numb to the facts and the math.
The atrocities that were known remained abstract and remote. Because the savagery of genocide so defies our everyday experience, many of us failed to wrap our minds around it. Bystanders were thus able to retreat to the twilight between knowing and not knowing.
The discussion of the identifiable victim effect is mostly kind of depressing, but there's a brighter version of it, which is to look at what spammers are doing. And spammers are interesting because they try different versions, they learn what's working and not working. And if you got spam, you probably got spam that looks much like this, from somebody who's a 23-year-old female in somewhere in Africa, and she has a particular problem, and you can get pictures of her, and you can create all of those things. And of course, what spammers are trying to do are trying to create an emotional link with us. They try to portray themselves as individuals in problems. They try to get us to care about them, to want to work with them, to want to help them. I've talked to some people who are working for companies like Yahoo and Microsoft and trying to basically reduce the chances that their users are going to fall for those scams. And what happens, what they say often is that they get them through some church bulletin board or through some online dating, and they start to create a relationship with them that lasts over a while, and don't ask for money first, and they ask for then a little bit and then a little bit more and so on. And it's the relationship that they build and the caring that they build that then they abuse to a very high degree. So this is what spammers and people who try to get us to part with our money do on the internet in terms of using the identifiable victim effect. There's one more thing that is not connected to that is just worthwhile mentioning as long as we deal with spammers and scammers. If you got these letters, these emails, you probably noticed that their grammar is not that good. And the question is why? And one possibility is that they just can't write. But there's been another suggestion which is kind of interesting. And that suggestion is that they do it on purpose. That their problem is that they send lots of emails out, and and they want the email that comes back to be from the people who are the most gullible, the most ones who are likely to follow. If many of us who would never go with those scams would start writing them, they will be burdened by the amount of work that they have to respond to all these people as they try to push them through the different steps of their scams. So what they want is they want a system that would leave the gullible people in the system and get rid of all the people who might not follow with them. And one suggestion has been that adding spelling mistakes are actually a way to differentiate between those two people. That if they wrote in a nice way, maybe more people who would not be giving the money at the end of the day will come into the funnel, would waste their time. So by creating lots of spelling mistakes, they get rid of some of the less gullible people, they stay with the more gullible people, and this way they can concentrate their efforts. Now, the evidence for this is just starting to build up, but I think it's interesting. In any case, I think that spammers are people who are getting very quick learning process because they get to send lots of emails, they get to get lots of responses back, and very quickly they can learn and adopt. Sad, but if you wanted to be in the domain of learning something about human behavior, spamming is probably a good place to learn how people really think and behave. When we think about emotions and cognitive inputs into decision, there's the question of when does one of them overpower the other, and when do we get the kind of information that is actually good for us. So there was one early experiment that I really, really love. And they got people into a room and they say, which jam would you like to buy? And they show them all kinds of jams. And to other people they said, which kind of poster would you like to get? And then the people got the jam that they wanted or got the poster they wanted, and they went to the dorm room and ate or didn't eat the jam and hung or didn't hang the poster. And they went back and they measured later how much jam did they eat and did they hang the poster or not. But here's the thing. When they initially made them decide, some people they just said, just decide, use your emotion, what would you like? And some people they gave them cognitive input. They gave them ratings from experts. They gave them all kinds of other information. Which one of them do you think was the right one? The one that included just the emotion in the beginning, or the one that included both the emotion and the cognitive input? Well, when people just worked based on emotions, they made decisions they liked better on. If they bought jam based on emotions, they got jam and they ate the jam. If they got a poster based on emotion, they got the poster and they put it on the wall. But if people started using more of cognitive thought, all of a sudden they got jam that they did not use and they got poster they did not hang up. Why? The reality is that the consumption experience of jams and posters is all about the emotions. What do you get? What kind of pleasure do you get when it's on your wall or when you're eating it in the morning? It's not about cognitive thought. So what this suggests is that when the decision environment includes the same element as the consumption environment, that will be the ideal situation. And if you have a situation which includes something irrelevant to the consumption, that is not going to work out. So it means two things. It means that the inputs from emotional cognition are different, and it means that you want to think about what is your consumption experience going to be like? Are you going to consuming based on emotion or based on cognition? And how do you make the decision environment encapsulate those elements that are going to be relevant later? Another example for this is from Chris Shih. Imagine you're going to a store and you see different speakers for your new wonderful stereo. And some speakers look more beautiful and some sound better. What's more important? Well, when you stand in the store, you see them side by side. So now all of a sudden, tiny differences in quality might seem very big for you because you put your headphone on and you say left, right, and tiny differences in quality might seem relevant. And you might decide to get the uglier one that sounds slightly better. But then you take it home. And when you take it home, you have only one speaker. And you can't compare this one to this one and this one to this one. All of a sudden, you get just one. And now you got one that has slightly higher quality of sound, but is uglier. And the ugliness stays with you for a long time. So think about this notion of the fit between the decision environment and the consumption environment. And think about what roles are emotions playing in one versus the other, And if you could get those to be more compatible and more similar, you can actually get people and yourself to make better decisions.